Good Friday evening. It's another edition of Varsity Sports Live. David Brown with Jason Andera, and we say it every week, but this was another bonkers week of high school football, both in North and South Dakota. A lot of changes, a lot of interesting finals.
How about North Dakota, first of all? I mean, the rotating number ones is getting ridiculous in their largest class, but in South Dakota, same thing. We had a lot of fun games, a lot of close games between a couple ranked teams, and can't wait to dig in and tell you guys all about it.
Well, let's start with North Dakota. As you mentioned, getting a look at the scoreboard. The game you saw here on Midco, Fargo-Davies 24, West Fargo 13. So Fargo-Davies, they may be the new number one in AA next week because for the third week in a row, Jason Andera, the number one team in 11 AA in North Dakota, goes down. Cheyenne lost to Davies, then Mandan lost to Minot, and now Shanley loses to Cheyenne, who was number one 3 weeks ago.
I feel bad for Fargo-Davies next week. That's all I can say.
Yeah, who wants to be number one up in North Dakota? We'll find out with Jody here in just a moment. Other scores from up north. Minot, they carry their momentum over from that win over Mandan with a 19-12 victory over Bismarck Century. They are 0-4 for the first time since the 1980s. Bismarck Demons are also 0-4 as they fall to Bismarck Legacy 34-15. Mandan, a good bounce back against Williston, 49-0. They blank Williston. Spartans from Fargo North in an AA versus A matchup. 11A, Fargo North 38-28 over AA St. Mary's. Grand Forks Central led the Rough Riders 9-0 at halftime, 19 unanswered for Grand Forks Red River as they win by 10. Wahpeton 42-14 over West Fargo Horace. Jamestown, they continue to roll 47-0 over Watford City. Valley City and Dickinson, this was a scoreless game at halftime. All the scoring in the second half, 27-6. Valley City over Dickinson. In 11B, Hillsborough Central Valley with a big win, 34-26 over Langdon area Edmore Munich. And Shiloh Christian 21-14 over Bowman County. Both those squads are now 4-1 on the season. More scores, Velva 56-6, another blowout victory for the Aggies. They are 5-0. Oaks 35-18 over Linton Hazleton Moffett Braddock. Number 5 Thompson, a squeaker over Rugby 28-26. The Tommies are now 5-0, as is Kindred, number one school there, 49-7 over Northern Cass. 9-man scores. The Holsteins 48-0 over the Imperials from Napoleon Gackle Streeter. Divide County in a shootout with West Hope Newburgh Glenburn 52-46. Good night for the Tornadoes. Oaks got the done, and so did Cavalier 50-20 over Larimore. And Windermere Lidgerwood 49-16 over Maple River. On to South Dakota. Tomorrow, the number one team in AAA, Sioux Falls Jefferson, will host Rapid City Central. Tonight, the game that you and Alex Heiner did here on Midco, 49-7. O'Gorman over Rapid City Stevens. Plenty of highlights from the Knights in this one.
Yeah, we've got some record-setting highlights to show you in that one.
Other scores from AAA. Harrisburg, number 4 over number 3, 41-22 over Sioux Falls Lincoln. Tale of two halves. We will show you the highlights of that one shortly. Then Brandon Valley all over Sioux Falls Roosevelt, 38-7. An 11 AA versus AAA game. Watertown gets blanked by Sioux Falls Washington, 30-0. To Class 11 AA, Pierre continues to get it done. This was kind of the measuring stick for Yankton. Didn't really pass the test, 55-10. The Pierre Governors, another blowout victory.
Yeah, and we'll get to the highlights and talk about it, but they did it in a different style this week. Pierre came out and ran the ball.
More scores. This was a game that was delayed a little bit by lightning out west, but they get it done 42-0 over Douglas. Brookings, they hold on 33-20. They had a lead by nearly 20 in this one. They hold on over Spearfish up in Brookings. Mitchell, the number 5 team, they had a below 500 record, but they fall on the road against Aberdeen Central 27-13. And then this game in the fourth quarter, Sturgis and Huron, a game also affected by lightning. That's why it's not over yet. 27-20. Oh, they
just went final, and it was Huron getting the win. 21-20 is the actual score.
21-20, so a little bit lower than what was initially projected. That's why we have recounts available. West Central 33-0 over Vermilion. This was only a 7-0 game at halftime. West Central turning it on in the second half. Good battle in Canton, number 2 over number 3. Del Rapids 28-22 over Canton. More scores. This was a fun game up in Sioux Valley. Bridgewater Emory Ethan 36, Sioux Valley 32. A back and forth affair. Cossacks led it at halftime, but the Seahawks get the victory. Elk Point Jefferson, maybe an unheralded, underrated story, 35-0 They have not given up a point this season, Jason Andera.
Talk about that defense. They are killing it on offense, but on defense, this far through the season without giving up a point is ridiculous.
190-0 is their combined score through the first 4 games in this season. Some 9-man scores from around South Dakota include Harriet Selby 44-26 over Ipswich. Howard 51-0 over Freeman Academy. We'll have highlights from Harriet Selby coming up shortly.
I just got to mention the Howard win, the 51-0 win. Statement time for Howard because they were starting to lose a little leverage at that number 1 spot. They redefined themselves as the top team in 9AA.
Canastota just finds themselves in fun games. Unfortunately, they're on the losing side of this one as well. Remember, they lost that close one to Howard a couple weeks ago. This one to Elkton Lake Benton, 38-30, and Hitchcock-Tulare. They're one of the best teams in 9B. Them and Harriet Selby seem on a collision course, rather, in 9B. The Patriots get it done 52-0 over Avon. Obviously, a ton of storylines in both North and South Dakota, but what sticks out to you about these scores early on?
Well, this 11A class continues to just be the most fun class to watch. You saw Del Rapids and get their first real test with Canton, and that was close. West Central cruised, and then we saw Sioux Falls Christian with an upset.
Yep, they beat Madison.
That was some interesting stuff, and then a couple more upsets of ranked teams going down. St. Thomas More, we didn't have a score of, but they went down to lead Deadwood, and that was a real shocker in my eyes, too. Their running back, Matt Larson, wasn't playing, though, so that made a big difference in that one.
Yeah, plenty of topsy-turvy action in 11A, but you know what we're going to do? We're going to give some love to 9-man action
Harriet
right
Selby,
now.
baby.
Absolutely. 9-man action to start our highlights here. Harriet Selby area against Ipswich. First play from scrimmage, Ipswich's Colby Silty. 70 yards on the shovel pass down the sideline. Tigers with an early lead against Harriet Selby, Jan.
They've got a really good offense. Ian Byers probably not getting enough pub for what he can do. Ipswich in 9AA, remember, Harriet Selby in 9B, so this is a huge test for the Wolverines.
Wolverines come right back. Brendan Begman, 55 yards for the touchdown. Then a little bit later, Ipswich trailing at this point 16-7. Ian Byers finds Chet Peterson. That makes it 16-14 late in the first quarter. But the Wolverines, they respond right away on their next drive. Trey had it. Look at this over-the-shoulder grab and nice adjustment by Trevor Gill. 24-14. Lots of scoring in that first quarter. Next time Harriet Selby had the ball, Begman breaking free for another long touchdown.
He sets everything up. You saw the Trevor Gill pass. That is all set up because Begman has been so dominant. 628 yards coming into this game, and he's basically played 3 halves of football in that time. He is just destroying 9-man defense.
And destroying defenders on that nice 12-yard run. That's the reason we showed it. And then later on, Heddick to Darian Barber, 20-yard score. 36-14 Harriet Selby at the half. And they would go on to win 44-26. Thanks to Christian Begman for shooting those highlights for us. But number 1 Harriet Selby looking good.
They looked very good, and that was, again, their first big test of the year. Next week, they play undefeated Sully Buttes, another test for them. And then if they can pass those 2 tests, I think they're on the road to the Dome, possibly. Ooh, did I say that?
This early in the season, we're gonna mark it down, and we're gonna revisit this in November. But Harriet Selby 4-0 now with a 44-26 win over Ipswich. Back up to 11 AAA. The game you and Alex Heiner did, O'Gorman and Rapid City Stevens. Number 5 versus number 2, but the Knights, they made quick work of the Raiders early in the first. Maverick Jones. Then Bennett Danbrink showed out. Sullivan Schlimgen here.
Well, they had a 7-play drive on that first drive. And after that, the next 5 plays, they scored 3 touchdowns. Look at that pass.
That's one of the best throws
dimes
you will see all season. 78-yard pitch and catch to Schlimgen. As you mentioned, both those last 2 touchdowns came on the first play of each of their respective drives. Rylan Satter, of course, has to get in on the action, taking it the distance there. 28-0 after 1. Peyton Hagee.
Here's the record breaker. This one gave Bennett Danbrink the most career touchdown passes at O'Gorman. This is basically his second season, so he's 4 games into his second season, already broke the career record for passing touchdowns.
Maverick Jones would add a couple more touchdowns in the second quarter, 3 on the night. 49-0 at halftime. 49-7 would be your final. Julian Scott will get the touchdown here for Rapid City Stevens, but 49-7 your final. O'Gorman scored at least 41 points in all 4 of its games this season, and it's something you and Alex alluded to on the broadcast. This is a very far cry from the Steve Keeter wishbone wing tee offenses of years past.
Well, I mean, everybody knew that Jason Poppinga likes to run an offense like this where he can spread it out, and he finally has a quarterback who is a top shelf. He's had good quarterbacks, don't get me wrong, a top shelf quarterback, and that's who we heard from after the game in Bennett Dannenberg.
I don't know if anything's necessarily been clicking, but we've just been doing what we do. We started doing it the second half last year. We've just been able to carry it on, and that's really been our identity, and we've been building off of it, stretching the field. Last year it was a lot more short. We didn't really get deep with it, but this year we're starting to get deep into the field, and you can see that obviously. We're getting over the top of the defense, and it's fun.
And it's fun. 250 plus yards in the first quarter alone. So he was on pace for 1,000 yards passing in this game. He is putting up ridiculous numbers. And this O'Gorman offense is so explosive. It's so fun to watch because they can go to Hagee, they can go to Satter. We saw Sullivan Schlimgen come up big.
Maverick Jones in the backfield.
Jones in the backfield, one of the few teams that has a legit running back. So fun to watch. But they have huge tests coming up the next 2 weeks with Lincoln, and then they'll have Jefferson. So that'll be interesting to see how they do from here.
Yeah, assuming things stay chalk, Jefferson and O'Gorman on September 30th at Howard Wood Field, number 1 versus number 2.
Get ready.
At least for right now, but that'll be one to keep your eye on in 2 weeks. But other teams in 11 AAA, they want to make themselves known as well. Lincoln and Harrisburg, 3 versus 4 matchup down at Tiger Stadium. We'll start off with Tate Schaefer, 15 yards. Isaac Jarofsky, nice adjustment, 7-0 Lincoln.
Jarofsky's come up so big this year. He has made the biggest improvement of any of the Lincoln receivers from last year to this year.
Dylan Elrod, Titan Tryon. He had a huge game for the Tigers, one of his 4 touchdowns.
He's seen some really tough coverages. In this game, he blew through those coverages.
Tate Schaefer, another long touchdown pass. This one goes 23 yards. That makes it 13-7 Lincoln after the 2-point try was no good.
There's Dawson Syme, another target for the Lincoln Patriots.
16-7 after a field goal, but then Harrisburg just flips the script in the second half. Elrod to Tryon, 28 yards, cuts the lead to 16-14 Lincoln. Then, back on offense are the Patriots, but Schaefer trying to buy some time. He's going to get stripped. Damian Baldwin with the strip, and then Jack Dieter returns it for the fumble recovery touchdown, 20-16 Harrisburg. And then on the Tigers' next offensive possession, Elrod, the screen. Max Carlson, remember his brother Lincoln Carlson? I think Harrisburg fans do. Look at this, 27-16 after the long run by Carlson. And again, they just completely flipped this game on its head in the second half. 16-7 turns in the 41-22. Tigers outscore the Patriots 34-6 in the second half.
I'm going to give Max Carlson the nickname of the most versatile player in the class. This guy has been unbelievable. He runs the ball sometimes, and they've been getting help from all types of guys filling in for their injured star, Gavin Ross, who has not been able to go. But Levi Danielson, Max Carlson, Titan Tryon, this is a team that's really starting to get some weapons.
And we heard from the victorious Tigers afterwards.
I mean, it's homecoming week. We're waiting for this game all week. And then they come out here and just do that. We hype them up. They hype us up. It's great. Yeah, I mean, they do a great job. They get open. They really help me out a lot. All I got to do is just put the ball on them. They go in there and score.
Maybe an underrated part, a couple things. Obviously, Dylan Elrod had to take over under the shadow of Jacob Knuth, who's now at the University of Minnesota at quarterback. But then keep this in perspective. They gave up 43 points in their week 1 loss to Jefferson. But in their 3 wins in a row, they've given up a combined 36 points.
They get after it, and that's what I was worried about with Lincoln. Will they be able to handle the pass rush that Harrisburg brings? And you saw the touchdown that they got off that. They gave Schaefer a lot to handle today. He had a tough time staying in the pocket. You saw him throwing off his back foot, throwing in weird positions all game, and he just could not get comfortable in this one.
And of course, Harrisburg trying to adjust its offense to after the injury to Gavin Ross, and it seems like they've kind of finally figured it out. Titan Tryon, obviously, with the career game there, but keep an eye on the Tigers. Obviously, Jefferson and O'Gorman have kind of separated themselves a little bit in AAA, but Harrisburg, certainly a team to keep an eye on down the stretch. More highlights from AAA. Roosevelt and Brandon Valley homecoming out in Brandon. Rough Riders on the move on their opening possession. Cole Decker, however, he puts an end to that with this interception. That would set up a field goal. Brandon Valley leads 3-0 after the first quarter. Second quarter, the Roosevelt defense, they gets one back. Jaden Huber. Check out this pick of Lucas Slack at the 1-yard line. That extinguishes the Lynx threat, but they're at their own 1-yard line. You got to be careful in the shadow of your own end zone. They run a bubble screen. Jackson Gravengood brought down in the end zone. There's a safety, 5-0 Brandon.
Well, you got to get the blocking right if you're going to do that. And you normally don't see screenplays within 5 yards of the end zone on either side of the field.
And the Lynx would take advantage of the extra possession. Slack with a dart to Nate Andreessen, 27 yards. Just like that, 12-0 Brandon Valley. Those two were not done yet. Next possession, Slack. Andreessen, again, might want to cover him. 66 yards to the house. Brandon led 18-0 at halftime, and they would go on to top Sioux Falls Roosevelt 38-7. Lynx back up to 500 at 2-2.
Lucas Slack had his best week of the season. I mean, they played Rapid City Central, hard to gauge how your team is really doing, but really got into rhythm with Andreessen on this night. And Brandon Valley hopes to turn a corner. And Roosevelt, they just really have to shore up that offensive line. That's been a real problem for them through 4 games.
Yeah, they've got great skill players. Obviously, the quarterback Brower's good, Ravengood's good. They got the guys that can make the offense jumpstart, but unless you protect the quarterback, you're not going to get much going. Moving on to 11AA, Yankton against Pierre. It was supposed to be a measuring stick for the Bucks, but the Bucks stopped with Lincoln Kienold, 62 yards to the house, 7-0 Govs.
And we saw this last year in the championship game when they didn't have a running attack. They went to Lincoln Kienholz to gain the yards, and he gained 200 on the ground tonight, but he can pass too, remember? And this is becoming old hat for Lincoln Kienholz, putting up numbers like this.
He finds Jet Zabel there, and then look at the touch again to Jet Zabel. If it works once, second is twice as nice. 28-3 Pierre at halftime. And when you're up big, you can take some chances. Watch this. The scramble falling away off his back foot to Jackson Edmond. My goodness.
And Jackson Edmond now just corralling touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. As he's come in, their tall tight end, 3 touchdowns last week in the red zone, comes up with another one. He's a huge red zone threat, as if the Pierre Governors needed more threats when they get close to the end zone. Huge night for them on defense, 7 sacks, and Lincoln Kienholz 200 on the ground, and Mosier with another 130. So they're getting it done through the air, on the ground, and definitely on defense.
And as you see, the 7 sacks, as you mentioned, Rugby Rocket had a decent game for Yankton, but again, Pierre kind of separating itself a little bit. T got a big win tonight over Douglas, but again, Pierre, when you face a number 3 team and you win by 45, that certainly says something about where you're at.
And that'll get it done. On homecoming night, they really came together and played well.
55-10, the Governors over the Bucks. A AA versus AAA matchup. Washington celebrating 100 years of Orange Letter Days as they took on Watertown tonight. Big game for Trig Otten, and it starts here. Quick strike from Thomas Hoffman. Otten does the rest, 61 yards to the house. 6-0 Sioux Falls, Washington after 1. Meanwhile, that Warrior defense was swarming. Who's number 99 on the Sioux Falls, Washington Warriors?
I don't know. He picked up about 4.5 sacks last week. He was in the backfield again this week. Abraham Myers, everybody, get to know him.
They're going to get to know him in Fargo next season as a commit to North Dakota State. Things got kind of crazy late in the half. Hoffman finds Gerard Franklin. He goes 60 yards deep into Watertown territory. This is with under a minute to go in the second quarter. Couple snaps later, Hoffman to Otten. Once again, 13-yard touchdown. That made it 17-0 with 16 seconds left in the half. Warriors squib it. It hits a Watertown player. They recover it. And one play after the squib recovery, how about Otten with touchdown number 3? Little sideline magic here as Hoffman scrambles. Look at this, just inside the pylon.
Tommy Hoffman, how about this kid? Buying extra time, throwing on the run, and throwing a dime right on Otten, and Otten had a huge half. He's been a big play guy the last 2 weeks now.
30-0 Warriors with the shutout victory over Watertown. Warriors have bounced back a little bit. They still got to kind of get more consistency on offense in general.
That's got to feel good, though, getting a couple wins after losing their first 2 out of the chute. And next week with Rapid City Central, and then their schedule gets really tough after that week.
More highlights. Dell Rapids and Canton. Number 2 versus number 3. Canton would score early. 6-0 at halftime for the Seahawks. But the second half, however, was all Warriors. Again, it was 6-0 Canton at halftime, but Mason Stubbe brings it in. 2-point conversion good. 8-6 lead for Dell Rapids in the third.
Canton was clicking, defensively especially, and things just started not to bounce their way. And you see it started with this interception, and then Jack Henry at quarterback really started to get in motion. He had a long run that got them into scoring position here, and they ended up capping it off.
Sutton Williams with the touchdown for Del Rapids. That puts them up 14-6. And then a little bit later on, you saw Braden Pankinen get one pick. Well, he's going to get another one right here.
Yeah, last year he had 3 picks in the first half of the season and took them all back for scorers. That helped him get on that all-state list. But this year, Pankinen running the ball and picking off the ball with ease.
And Mason Stubbe with his second touchdown of the evening. Del Rapids turns things around in the second half. 28-22 in a 2 versus 3 matchup. Solid road win for the Warriors.
Yeah, Canton looked really good on defense to start this game, and in the second half, Del Rapids figured them out, and give a lot of credit to Jack Henry at quarterback. He engineered a few drives that got them down the field.
Elk Point Jefferson, we talked about them. One of the best stories that maybe you haven't heard of. They were at McCook Central Montrose here for homecoming in Salem. First quarter already 3-0 Huskies. Benjamin Swadek, pinball machine, breaking through defenders, scampering 28 yards, 10-0 EPJ.
Yeah, and their combination at back with Lucas Heiser and Ben Swadek have been outstanding. And then Noah McDermott gets into the swing of things here with a big completion in the first half.
Devon Schmitz pulls it in on 3rd and 24, 70-yard touchdown, 17-0 after 1. That's more points than McCook Central Montrose had allowed in 4 games. Elk Point Jefferson, as we mentioned, hadn't allowed a point in 3 games. They're going to make it 4. Chase Fornia with a sack there. A little banged up after the play, but the win would make him feel better. 35-0. Elk Point Jefferson over McCook Central Montrose. They're against Flandreau next week, but man, 190-0 is their combined score through this first part of the season.
And I watched as much of this game as I could, and from what I could see, that last drive there, that was as far as McCook Central Montrose got it across the field. And we're talking about an offense that wasn't too shabby. They had Boston Katzer, the leading passer in the class, yardage-wise and touchdown-wise coming in, and they shut him down.
As you mentioned, Swadek with 117 yards and a touchdown. Sioux Valley and Bridgewater Emory Ethan. This was a fun game. The first play is fumbled by Sioux Valley, recovered by the Seahawks. Then Macklin Weber, quick run for the touchdown, 2-pointer no good, 6-0 Bridgewater Emory Ethan. Sioux Valley right back, Donovan Rose, nice, hard, tough run there. And then he's going to get the TD on this play. They made their extra point, 7-6 Sioux Valley with the lead over Bridgewater Emory Ethan. But this was a back and forth affair all night. There's only 2 reasons we show you a kickoff. There's a fumble or there's a touchdown. It's the latter here.
Or Tim Riley shooting. That could be too.
Or Tim Riley shooting. Shout out to our buddy Tim Riley out west. This one is Riley Endress. He returns it. 14-7 now, Bridgewater Emory Ethan. But, we got another kickoff, Jason.
Yeah, you know what that means. That was a problem in this game. The special teams made a big impact in this game because the offense put up some big numbers, but in close games like this, you need to get those big plays.
That was Donovan Rose again, so a rushing touchdown and a special teams touchdown. 14 all at that point. Again, back and forth affair. Sioux Valley led 26-22 at halftime. Sutton Aaron with the touchdown run and the 2-pointer. That made it 30-26. That's the final from Elkton Lake Benton against Canastota, but the final from Bridgewater Emory Ethan against Sioux Valley was 36-32. The Seahawks over the Cossacks from Sioux Valley.
And the Seahawks have been great on defense this year, giving up less than 4 points per game. So they gave up those 32, but Macklin Weber, 12 rushes, 114 yards, big game for him. And defensively, they did just enough to get the win.
Well, spoiler alert, you saw the final score. Now you're going to see the highlights of Elkton Lake Benton against Canastota. Ryan Krogh, Tanner Stein. Check out these moves. And look at the framing. Shout out to Levi. Look at the clock in the background, counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 70-yard touchdown as the first quarter ends. That makes it 8-0 Elkton Lake Benton.
I just got to say, Canastota plays the best games, don't they?
They do.
Like, you're entertained when you watch Canastota.
Tage Ortman punches that one in. 16 all at halftime. We move to the second half. Ortman, once again, his second touchdown as he just sneaks it in. That gave the Canastota the lead 22-16. But Krogh to Tanner Stein. Remember that old Reggie Bush highlight? This looks awfully similar as he crisscrosses back over the field, taking it all the way to the 1-yard line. He couldn't quite get in, Jason.
But this is a team that feeds off the energy from Ryan Krogh. This guy is electric.
And Krogh finishes what he started, punches in the final yard. Elkton Lake Benton back on top. Turning point comes here. Quentin Poindexter, smart off the field, smart on the field. That gives Elkton Lake Benton some momentum. 38-30, final chance for Canastota, down 8. They get stopped on 4th down at the 10-yard line. And you saw it earlier, but now we reaffirm it, 38-30, Elkton Lake Benton over Canastota.
What an effort in this game. Canastota, as I referred to early, always playing in tight games, and Ryan Krogh, he was an absolute animal in this one. The total offense, they ran for 387 yards in this one, and Krogh passed for 318 yards and 4 touchdowns as well. So this Ryan Krogh kid, he might be a player of the year material. He's putting up some big numbers this year.
Great win for the Elks over the Hogs. Avon and Hitchcock-Tulare, it's a top 5 showdown. First quarter, Carter Binger, the sidearm Patrick Mahomes style to Eric Selman, fishing his way into the end zone, 6-0 Patriots. And that was all they would need, Jandy. We mentioned there's only a couple of reasons we show a kickoff return. There's only a couple reasons you show a punt, a fumble, or a touchdown. Once again, it's the latter. Landon Puffer, huffing and puffing down the sideline.
Yeah, they've got a trio of excellent players. Landon Puffer, one of those guys just making stuff happen. Eric Salmon has done a great job, and you mentioned Carter Binger already. When a 9-man team, especially a 9B team, has that much talent, they can be explosive, and they showed Avon they were the team to beat in 9B.
Binger, the screen to Puffer, 23 yards, 35-0 at that point, 52-0 is your final. Patriots over the Pirates, and as you mentioned, this Hitchcock-Tulare squad, they seem to have contributors in all 3 phases.
Yeah, as 9B starts to shake out a little bit, really looking at Harriet-Selby area, and we're looking at Hitchcock-Tulare as the 2 teams that could potentially be meeting at the end of the season. They look definitely like the strongest teams in 9B, but of course in 9B, you got to stay healthy all season long. We saw that last year.
Yeah, and we saw it with Del Rapids St. Mary's a little bit earlier this season.
A couple injuries can change things.
Yep, they've been beset by injuries, but as you said, Harriet, Selby, Hitchcock-Tulare looking great in Class 9B in South Dakota. Craziness down south, craziness up north, where the number 1 in the AA goes down for the 3rd straight week. Jody has your North Dakota highlights when we return.
You're watching Varsity Sports Live, presented by Avera Orthopedics. Welcome back to Varsity Sports Live, presented by Farmers Union Insurance.
Welcome back to Varsity Sports Live. David Brown, Jason Andera. Let's head up north to Fargo and Jody Norset. Now, Jody, you will always be our number 1, but the question is, does anyone else want to be number 1 in AA?
Yeah, isn't that the doozy of it all? And Troy Mattert even said, I texted him after last week's win and said, well, now you're going to be number 1. And he said, yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And well, tonight is number 1 ranked Shanley Deacons fall to the Cheyenne Mustangs, who entered the season the defending state champs. So who knows? Davies is going to get the lucky strike at number 1 next week, most likely. They came in number 2. They were able to beat West Fargo. And heck, that was the game that we had right here on Midco Sports. So without any further ado, let's take a look at the highlights. The Eagles coming in, averaging 32 points per game. That's 2nd in 11 AA. But here we go. They come running with Oliver Luck's 6-yard touchdown run. And that was on a 4th and 4. So with 4:57 left in the second, they take a 7-0 lead. Then it's a 12-yard or a 43-yard pass here from Cole Tiedemann to Riley Prochnow. And it sets up the answer from the Packers. Cole Tiedemann, a 12-yard touchdown run. Let's take a look. This is on 3rd down, and Tiedemann, boy, like John Elway in the Super Bowl, almost a helicopter, but they missed the extra point. So it's 7-6, and that was the score at the half. That's a score of 2 Packer games so far this year. They've been on the winning side and the losing side. In the second half, Mason Claybo look into the air. This is a 4th down again, a 4th and 7. They score again to Luke Lorenz for the touchdown. But on the ensuing kickoff, this is one of the best kick returns you will ever see. My man, Peyton McGregor, gonna go 96 yards. How is he gonna score this? We'll just sit back and enjoy. Spin. McGregor with a thing of art, diving across. Sometimes you just have to shut up and let the video do the talking. 15-13 still, Davies in front, but Davies keeps marching down. Another 4th and goal, this one from the 1, and it's a 1-yard touchdown run from Mason Claybo. 21-13. That was late in the third quarter, and Davies holds on to beat the Pack. A big win for the Eagles as they have now won 3 straight. Get Minot next week, but they'll celebrate this one a little bit. They were able to really lock up West Fargo late with some good pass rushing. I think 3 or 4 sacks on the last Packer drive. Here's Brendan Palmer afterward.
Last couple of weeks we haven't gotten much pressure on the QB, and that's up front. So we got told by our Coach Peterson. He said, hey, we got to start getting some pressure. We got to start putting some pressure on the QB so he has to roll out, throw a bad pass. We had a few of those, few interceptions. So up front, I thought that we did a good job this game.
Palmer committed to play for the Bison next year. The only undefeated team left in 11AA entering the night, Shanley taking on Cheyenne. The Mustangs looked good last week, hammering Century. Speaking of hammering, look at these shots right off the bat. Carter Menz with a big hit on Michael Rosberg. Then Caden Rahr gets taken out by Jordan Leininger from Shanley. Following a Mustang turnover, Michael Rosberg punches it in on a 4th and goal. Deacons go up 7-0. Cheyenne answers back. Caleb Deere hooking up downfield with Aiden Knodel. This one a 22-yard gain down to the 1. 2 plays later, Deere scores on the keeper, knotting it up at 7s apiece in the second quarter. Mustangs start to pull away in the second half. Deere going to hit Race Wilson, and here's that line again, off to the races. Oh, Race always gets first place. It's a 27-yard touchdown for number 3. Cheyenne in front 21-7, closing in on the finish line. Shanley showing some life late in the game, though. Rosberg to Sam Oshik, one of the return kings last week, had a return touchdown. He's been a touchdown machine all year. That's a big gain. Then it's the other basketball player, Rosberg, with a 41-yard touchdown to Vachiri Hakim. What a rainbow pass. 28-13 with 4 minutes left. Cheyenne trying to run out the clock, but they know that no lead is safe with the Deacons, so they go ahead and catch them off guard. The pass to Caden Rahr behind the defense. Cheyenne wins it 35-13, so number 1 goes down for a 3rd consecutive week. The Mustangs pick up the victory. Afterward, it was all about that defense for the Mustangs.
Well, half our offense, Shanley, they come back every year with their offense, but the defense is lackluster. Need to pick that up. But we just came out to play, and we played as a team. We lost against Davies that one time defensively, and we just came back, practiced hard, and we got Grand Forks next week. Keep our heads down.
Now they're rolling a little bit. No team had a better week last Friday than Minot. The Magi knocked off the number 1 Mandan. Their prize to date with a ticked-off Century team that's 0-3 for the first time since 2005. Tied at 12 at the half, opening drive for Century. Complete pass to William Ware, but the ball comes loose. Turnover in favor of the Magi. Then Jaden Sparrow takes a snap on 4th down, cuts back up the middle, and he scores. How about all these are stopped at the goal line? Meanwhile, Jackson Walls was there for the stop. Back comes Century. Barth fakes the handoff, then hits Preston Zimmerman with a shovel pass. Then Barth using the play action with a monster from Minot. Caden Turnbull with the sack. Patch that kid up, he's fine. Minot offense showing his toughness. They hand off to Tyson Ruziska up the gut. 1 man to beat, and he does it. Home team up 19-12. Pats need to generate some offense, but a bad snap here, and Michael George is going to be all over Mr. Barth. Minot snaps a 4-game losing streak to the Patriots, 19-12. I tell you what, Caden, if you need some makeup for that bloody face, I have some to lend you. Big win for Minot as they keep things rolling now, 3-1. They're at Davies next week. That is going to be a heck of a game. They could upset another number 1 team. Well, we talked about Century's struggling start. Bismarck High is 0-3 for the first time since 1979. Things didn't get much better tonight against Legacy. Second quarter, BHS driving, but Quinn Hafner's throw picked off by Lucas Kupfer, and Legacy holds on to a 27-7 lead at halftime. Third quarter, Hafner redeems himself a little bit. He tosses a perfect ball to Hudson Schroeder. Boom, right on the money for the touchdown. 2-pointer good, 24-15 Legacy. Bismarck made it interesting late last week against Davies. Could they do it here? Logan Miller puts that thought to rest. A dual threat dandy of a quarterback. Great moves for a nice run. Nearly gets in, but a few plays later he finishes the job. It's Miller time. Plunges in. Sabres going to win a 3rd consecutive game, 34-14. Is there a new power in Bismarck football? Legacy kind of taking the reins of that. Well, the last time Fargo North and St. Mary's played a game was August of 2000. Spartan head coach Adam Rowland was a freshman at UND, and St. Mary's head coach Dan Smeeker, well, he was doing the same thing he was doing tonight, coaching Saints football. The top songs in that era, it's going to be Me by NSYNC. North strikes first. Ethan Welk looking for his receiver Carson Hannestead, finds him wide open for the 37-yard score. Saints answer. Tommy Kralik muscles his way in to the end zone. And then check out John Williams. Another hit back in that time in 2000 was smooth by Santana. John Williams looking smooth on this touchdown. 14-7 North. Saints showing off their air attack. Kralik finds Caden Willer for a 19-yard score. We're tied at 14, but another hit, the number 1 hit later that year, doesn't really matter, by Janet Jackson. And that didn't really matter because North goes on to win it 38-28. There's your 2000 music trivia. North with a big win right ahead of their rivalry matchup with Fargo South next week. They are 4-0. Well, someday they'll talk about the first varsity game ever played at West Fargo Horace in the year 2022, and the number 1 song was As It Was by Harry Styles. Go figure. The Hawks still searching for that first monumental win, hosting Wapton. Huskies open the scoring late in the first. Bo Arnstein on the 3-yard touchdown run. Hawks try to get their offense going in the second quarter. Taylor Stefanovic looking deep. But the ball's tipped, picked out by Riley Timian. Wahpeton capitalizes off the turnover. Arnstein to Trayton Mauk was so good on our air last week in that matchup against North, even though they came up well short. But Mauk really burst onto the scene as a sophomore, a 30-yard touchdown. Not much to celebrate for Horace tonight. They do score 2 touchdowns in their first home varsity game, but they fall 42-14. Well, somebody tweeted at me that they wanted to see Red River highlights on the show. About time we put some respect on the 3rd-ranked Rough Riders. Big matchup against Central in the 26th annual Cushman Classic. First quarter, Dylan Lamont, 1-yard touchdown pass to Leo Strandell. Nice drop, first blood. Red River down 9-6 in the 3rd, but watch out for the Rough Riders. Gunnar Hiker in for Pierce Parks at QB. Remember, he didn't initially go out for football. He's a big baseball player. But now he's on the team, and that'll help. To Quinn Nelson, 8 yards out, Red River up 12-9. And then Parks back in at QB, and he's just going to run it in the 4th quarter. He calls his own number, finds the end zone. Red River picks up their 3rd straight win, 19-9. Now 4-1 on the year. Now they get the big test against Cheyenne, who's starting to play well next week. Big matchup in 11B Region 2 tonight. Langdon, Edmore, Munich, and Hillsborough Central Valley already with 1 loss each on the season. Cardinals have the ball here. Race Worley fakes the pass, and then he's intercepted here by Caden Kozajold. Incredible play. After a Burrow 3-and-out, Cardinal ball again. Worley heaves it to Marcus Kingsa for the score. 6-0 Langdon area, Edmore, Munich after a missed 2-pointer. Cardinals pushing again. Worley completes a short screen to Mason Rumfo, who breaks a tackle, and he's going to stride into the end zone. Another touchdown allowed by the HCV defense, but the Burrows aren't done. Quarterback Riley Olson can't find an open man passing, so the coach's son is just going to go to his legs. Gets out here, no one can catch up to him. 60 yards on the play into the end zone. Hillsborough on the board, and the Burrows go on to win a slobber knocker up in Buxton. 34-26, moving to 4-1 on the year. That is a huge win for HCV, and they get Harvey Wells County next week. Doesn't get much easier for Langdon, Edmore, Munich taking on Thompson next week. Shiloh Christian just a week removed from losing a shootout against Trinity on their home field, hosting a surging Bowman County squad. Bulldogs on a 3-game win streak. Shiloh strikes first. Joey Desir on the rollout finds Isaac Emmel for the touchdown catch as he sneaks it across. 7-zip Skyhawks. Bowman County responds. Bowden Duffield on the option. Thinks once, thinks twice. Yeah, I'm just going to pitch it to my brother Bishop. He takes it in for a big gain down to the 10-yard line. Those Duffield boys are quite the athletes. And then Bishop Duffield finishes the drive with a score on the ground. Watch the good blocking up front, and he just kind of navigates his way through traffic. Not a lot of traffic out in Bowman County these days. Maybe a little more when you make the trek to Bismarck. It's tied at 7. Then Desir back to pass. He's going to find Emmel again, and Emmel going to beat everyone. Look at those stiff arms right in your face. I think he stiff-armed about 3 guys on that play. Makes it 14-7 Skyhawks. This is a lot like the Trinity game, isn't it? And then we're done. Desir connects with Michael Fagerland here. Nice catch, Michael, to go up and get it. Gets him in good position to score again. Desir going to call his own number. Has a nice hold there on the right side. Shiloh Christian wins a nitty-gritty one this time, 21-14. They fell in a track meet last week to Trinity, but they get the W here. Bowman County gets Trinity next week, but the Skyhawks will improve to 4-1 on the season. Well, what do we have coming up next? Let's listen to what the Skyhawks had to say after the win.
they were a really good team, and they did a really good job getting some really good plays, on some big plays actually. Those definitely guys are just really great. But I'm proud of my guys who made the bigger plays, and we stuck it out through the fourth quarter to get this big dub.
To 9-man, where New Salem Almont had its sights set on 5-0, hosting Napoleon Gackle Streeter. The Holsteins' offense has been utterly ridiculous, averaging 42 points a game. Hope he caught that one at home. Brock Norton, the sophomore stud, continues to roll. He had 277 rushing yards last week, averaging 12 yards a carry. Rips off a 70-yard touchdown run for our camera. On defense, Kane Grinsteiner picks off this Imperial pass from Jordan Jangelin, and he's not content with only the pick. He wants the 6. Look at Kane go. Eat your heart out, Undertaker. If you don't get the WWE reference, I apologize. 12-0 Holsteins after the failed two-pointer. Then just seconds before the end of the first, it's Norton again. If you listen close, you can even hear the buzzer here. That means it's time for Napoleon to go home. 18-zip home team after one, and the rout happens. New Salem goes on to win it 48-0. The Holsteins are 4-0. I know that there's Cavalier that's undefeated, and Lemoore Litchfield Marion has been destroying everyone, but it's going to be a frantic finish in 9-man. A lot of good teams that are proving their worth right now. Cavalier won a big one against Larimore tonight. Ole's fans, too, guys. A player last week for Divide County collapsed on the field in a matchup with Surrey. A bunch of people rushed onto the field, helped save his life, get him back going and using a defibrillator. So big salute to those people that helped save Ole's life, who's doing much better back home. We'll take a break now, but I wanted to make sure to mention that. And congrats to Divide County. They got a big win tonight over West Hope Newburgh Glenburn in a shootout. We'll be back with zone coverage coming up next here on Varsity Sports Live.
You're watching Varsity Sports Live, presented by South Dakota State University. Time now for Varsity Sports Live, presented by Avera Orthopedics.
I was just looking at my laptop, looking at more scores, because that is how wild it was of a night, especially that 11 AA level has been absolutely crazy. The new number one next week will likely be Davies after they got a 24-13 victory over West Fargo tonight. You saw it right here on Midco Sports. Mason Clabo with a passing touchdown, a rushing touchdown on that one. The sophomore quarterback is growing up before our very eyes. A standout on the basketball court, but really showing his worth on the football field. Afterward, Wayne Weyermeyer had a lot of praise for his sophomore QB.
Competitor. The only word I ever have for Mason is he's a competitor, and he understands what we're doing. I called 2 bad plays, and he changed the motion to make him good plays, and a smart football kid, and just a kid that's going to come play every night. Doesn't care if he gets 100 yards rushing or 300 yards receiving or 0 yards rushing or receiving. He's a team guy. So great football kid, great kid to be around.
So a big win for Davies. They keep on rolling, their 3rd straight victory. And how about the answer by Cheyenne after having the loss to Davies now 3 weeks ago? They come back and beat Century handily last week. And then tonight, after Shanley's looked so good, the only undefeated team coming into the night in 11 AA, and they wallop them 35-13. The Mustangs, you just always got a sense that, okay, lights are going to start turning on. Their defense, they're just too good year after year. The coaching's too good, and they get the win. But now that is the 3rd straight week that a number one team has fallen in 11 AA. Jeremy Newton, what do you think of the parity in 11 AA?
Yeah, I really think this is a weird year where I think there could be 6-7 teams that could win state this year. And that's it's fun, but every week's a grind, so we got to come to play every week.
Yeah, this new statewide schedule, how about it, man? I mean, you could see Legacy jumping into that conversation. Minot being in the hunt. Mandan, of course, being in the hunt. They were ranked number 1 a couple of weeks ago. And Shanley, Cheyenne, Davies, this is it's been a crazy year so far at the 11 AA level, and we're only in week 3, week 4. We still have a lot of season left to play, so it should be a lot of fun. How about in 11B? We had Shiloh Christian had that tough loss last week against Trinity, a back-and-forth game. They get the win tonight over Bowman County, 21-14. Fun and Barker just really pleased with his team's all-around effort tonight.
It all starts up front for us defensively, where our D-line is active. We tend to open things up for our linebackers, and then they make plays. You got to give them a lot of credit. They made a lot of things tough on us. They were able to move the ball between the 20s, but we were able to hunker down when we needed it.
So a good win for Shiloh. Obviously, Trinity, they picked up another one. They actually played yesterday and got a big W. So they keep rolling. Hankinson had a big win tonight, so another helmet on display here as we continue to have a great collection of helmets. The Davies one is new tonight, so the Eagles needed to get a helmet here because they knew they were going to win tonight, guys.
Well, I'm going to give you some advice based off of your 2000 hit music recollection.
Yeah.
Me and Faith Hill, breathe. Just
Okay.
breathe. You did a lot of highlights and you talked a lot, so just breathe now, Jody.
That was the number one
No
song
time
in
for
2000.
breathing.
Number one song.
There we go. Thank you, Jody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Jody Norset up in West Fargo, as he mentioned, third straight week, and number one team goes down. Meanwhile, here in South Dakota, number one Jefferson in AAA will play tomorrow, but number two O'Gorman with a big statement tonight against Rapid City Stevens.
Yeah, and they came off of a loss, a disappointing loss last week, and we talked to Jason Poppinga after the game about how they responded.
Yeah, I mean, losses are never bad if we can learn something from it. And obviously, it exposed some things that you may not have gotten taken care of this early in the season, and we didn't tackle well, and we didn't block really well. We didn't take care of little things, but tonight, our kids did a great job. I mean, Stevens is a good team. They're bigger than us up front. They got talent. Their quarterback's really talented, and I thought our kids played really well.
And they certainly did play very well. Again, they put up more than 40 points in all of their games this season.
Yeah, only 49. They were under their average tonight.
Only.
I don't know how that happened, but yeah, O'Gorman's in a good spot. Tough 2 weeks coming up.
Absolutely. As you mentioned, they got Jefferson in a couple weeks as well. But a team that may be sneaking up on others in AAA, Harrisburg. They flipped the script in the second half. They outscored Lincoln 34-6 to take the victory. Tigers over the Patriots. And we heard from head coach Brandon White afterwards.
I think it stems back from last year. What people don't understand is, yeah, we're young. We only got one starter back on offense, but this group of kids had to practice against a 12-0 team last year, and I think that goes to, takes for granted a little bit, in the prep work and stuff like that. They just get their butts kicked a little bit, and they had to respond, and that's what we saw. And then now it's their turn. They were hungry, and they wanted to make those plays that they saw happen last year. And
well, as you mentioned, maybe the younger guys got a little humbled last year in practice, maybe humbled in game one against Jefferson, but the Tigers have won 3 in a row now.
Well, what you look for is how these teams evolve throughout the year. And from where they started and where Dylan Elrod was against Jefferson to where he is now is already leaps and bounds better. So that's a good sign for these Harrisburg Tigers.
And speaking of leaps and bounds, Pierre continues to be leaps and bounds above everyone in 11AA. 55-10 over Yankton tonight. And you talked with Steve Steele a little bit earlier.
Yeah, and they do whatever they have to do to make them win. And Lincoln Keenholz does whatever he has to do to make them win. And after the game, he was pleased with the homecoming win over Yankton.
Yeah, I mean, this was a huge game for our defense. We really stalled out the first quarter, really, for the most part on offense. Our defense did an outstanding job standing tall and, kind of giving the offense time to figure things out and find a way to move the ball on Yankton. And a lot of credit goes to them. I mean, their defensive backs played outstanding tonight, gave a lot of trouble to our receivers. And, I think that was a really tough part of the first quarter. But our defense just did awesome standing tall and allowing that time for us to get things figured out. Yeah, we felt like we had a couple formational advantages that we might be able to use. One of them with Lincoln, and I think we used that very well in the second quarter in particular. And he ran the ball so well. Again, both of those, the fact that we're running the ball that much means our offensive line did an outstanding job. Understanding their assignments, being able to get out and run. We asked them to get out and pull and get off the edge and really lead the way for both of them. So they just did an awesome job. Open up holes for those guys. Lincoln and Brock both hit the holes extremely hard. And then, if they got through that whole plane, they were able to keep running for a long way.
You see the 55-10 final, and of course you think about all the offensive skill guys, but 7 sacks on defense, and that's what impressed Steve the most.
Yeah, and they took care of Rugby Riken. They did the best job on Rugby Riken that anybody's done so far this year. Gavin Swanson, their senior running back, was out for Yankton. That didn't help.
Not at all. 55-10 the final Pierre over Yankton. We will wrap it all up after this on Varsity Sports Live.
You're watching Varsity Sports Live, presented by Farmers Union Insurance. Welcome back to Varsity Sports Live, presented by South Dakota State University.
Hope you enjoyed high school football tonight. College football tomorrow. Cal Poly South Dakota at 1. Butler South Dakota State at 6. For Jody and Jandy, I'm Brownie. Peace out.